services, and the industrial firm may have the national market with different capacities. You are going to work with those elements when you design your policy. Indeed, a deep understanding of the spectrum in your country is the key element of any effective SME policy. You need to know who you're working with. Indeed, a deep knowledge about the spectrum, who they are, where they are, what they do, and so on, therefore you need evidence, should be your guiding light, determining not only the effectiveness, how effective you think you're going to be, but also the sufficiency, how much intervention must you need to make a change. Now I will give you a little bit of an additional example of the law that that first identifies the market value and then designs, theoretically, the intervention. I will do something that is not recommended. Read from a text, especially a text written by a politician. But whoever wrote this was very, very knowledgeable and wrote very. So it is worth the read. By the way, this act, and you in Nepal have a similar act, was built in 1953 during the Cold War, and you will see why this is important. So the first sentence. This is a one paragraph in a 57, 58 page document. One paragraph says it all. The essence of the American economic system of private enterprise is free competition. The preconditions, the assumptions. What are we? Oh, we need to charge. Otherwise, you might be rather interested. Then we'll see if Giuseppe really remembers the stuff. But just
could you continue?
Okay, I'll continue. Okay. So now you go into the theory of intervention. The preservation and expansion of such competition, the target is competition, is basic not only to the economic well-being, but to the security of this nation. If you wanted to get anything done in 1953, you had to have something about the security of the nation, because they were all worried about Russia. The reality of policy making. Such security and well-being cannot be realized unless the actual and potential capacity of small business is encouraged and developed. Here is the market failure discussed in potential. So that didn't say it does fail. It cannot work. So it's a theoretical assumption saying unless you intervene, there's a market failure. Now the intervention language. It is the declared policy of the Congress that the government, in this case the Small Business Administration, yes we are, should aid, counsel, assist, and protect, insofar as is possible, the interests of small business concerns, the target market, in order to preserve free competitive enterprise, which then provides national well-being and national security. The last part, the rest of the 57 pages, is they designed the intervention. So you have the intervention policy, objectives, maintain competition, economic well-being and security. The critical agent, whom will you work with? Whom will the transmission mechanism change, impact? Small businesses. And the government role, which is a control system. Okay. That's end of the first lecture. Do you have any questions? Did you understand all this stuff? Do you agree? Is this a nice story that Giuseppe comes in and talks? Is it accurate? So, I would like to hear your views. First of all, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Let me know your views.
It does make sense.
It does?
So, but as you said, government intervention, as we studied in economics, the government intervention does reduce consumer product surplus and carries their weight. How does government intervention actually improve SMEs' productivity?
You all agree? Some of you disagree? The last time I gave this lecture, a student said, not in my country. Anytime government came in, made it worse. Inefficient. In that case, the market failures are small vis-a-vis the government error. What do you think? Possible, maybe in Nepal and other countries? What do you think? Which one's is worse? Which one's better? Back there. What do you think? Yes? What do you think now? No? Okay. I'll move on. You sure you don't have any criticism? Oh, you must think something is not correct. No? Oh, I'm lucky. So how do we get to the second slide? Yeah. So, I discussed the justification to intervene, market failures, good government, some data. This, or any intervention, it can go right, and as I hinted, it can go very, very wrong. It can go wrong because you have the wrong assumption. It can be wrong that you have the wrong information. It can be wrong that you have the not so good motive. In order to improve the probability that government effectively and fairly intervenes in the private sector, I would propose that there is a prerequisite, a strong governmental infrastructure. You need to have good legislations, good ministries, good bureaucrats. They must work together. Because if you get this wrong, you will create a lot of damage. Intervention is powerful, impactful, but with lots of problems and advantages.
I think we need to wait for
Okay.
chat.
No, I can talk. Yeah. So we'll wait.
Chat.
Well, let me describe when you do not have good infrastructure. You have weak governments that can be influenced by a single individual or a single party. And can lead to preferential assistance in one group, which may actually should have gone to everyone, So I have an inefficient allocation or a corrupt allocation. I could help this group, not consider this group, and hurt this group. At the end of the day, I may be worse off. You have an unbalance. So, an infrastructure does not ensure, but assists and increases the probability that it is done fairly, well distributed, relatively efficient, and represents the needs and interest of the stakeholders, be they the parliament, the executive, the presidency, whoever, the political parties, the business group, the individuals. This infrastructure should be sensitive to that. And in the future, it is you that should basically ensure that infrastructure exists and is used. It's okay, I can continue. My generation, their generation, most of them, I will probably have another 5 to 10 years, maybe, to influence policymakers. You have the opportunity to influence your government, your society, your businesses for the next 30, 40 years. If change is to happen, it will be your responsibility. You are the educated population. You will become, to one degree or another, or form or other, influential people. It's your choice. It has risks, because you speak with the wrong politician, and you may get blamed. You will need to do this. Let me see if I can go on. In the US is a division of power. Within the federal government, you have the legislative branch that has the upper house and lower house, the executive branch that follows the directive of the legislature, and then the judicial system that judges whether a law, rule, or intervention is in accordance to the Constitution and the rest of the laws. So, Congress, hey, right timing. At least there. All right. The Congress has oversight and money authority. So they will say to the ministry, actually they'll say to the president will say to the ministry, okay, I gave you money, I gave you a law, you implemented. Give me monthly information on what you did, give me quarterly information on what you did, and then give me an analysis of the history that you did over the last 5 years. Up to now, Congress asked for small studies, case studies, small surveys, just on jobs. No, not well-being, just on jobs. Why? Because that's where the data is. The other stuff was too difficult. And it was not even verified. But we did do studies, and actually, much to my surprise, the self-reported data was actually accurate. The reason for that is there's a little line in the application form that if you knowingly lie, you go to jail. So it's not... The U.S. President, through the Office of Management and Budget, so Congress gives money to the President, OMB distributes the money, and they manage. They ask for additional surveys, additional case studies. Now you begin to see the infrastructure. There is the legislature that authorizes, delegates, gives the money. The president and the ministry do the intervention, but even the OMB says, you want money, you gotta prove to me that you did things right. Up to last few years, based on small studies and small surveys. Little evidence. The technology was not there. They also, as I mentioned, ongoing monthly performance. We've already discussed about this. Now, I'm going to go into the last 5 years and into the prospective future. And let me describe this, what I call the value proposition of big data. Do people know what big data is? All right, let me describe what big data is. A large data set that is often gathered from the internet, from the bureaus that collect data on utility bills, all these things, from business registries, from government Ministry of Statistics. Years ago, we didn't have the technology to use all this data. Then, around, let's say, last 20 years, technology did a lot. Now you see that Google knows just about everything about you. You click, they watch, they gather, they use algorithm, they know a lot about you. During the Bush administration, Bush 2, they began to think about this, and during the Obama administration, implemented this. And this is what they told us. No more small studies. You need program administrative data. You have an intervention, you collect the data. Whom you worked with, when did you provide, what type did you provide. All this information must be available to you and to me as the OMB. Secondary data, remember the 2 samples? You gotta go and collect the data on those that you did not assist, and then you have to see how the behavior, the growth changed. You must use the experimental design, sugar, no sugar. Intervention, no intervention. Similar conditions, similar economy. Okay, now, not just jobs, but much more. Value generation. How much was those that you provide assistance? What was their sales? Profits. And Mr. or Mrs. Prime Minister. Taxes, which you are interested in. That's how you get their interest. Business formation. Startups, closures, business growth. Mergers, acquisition, bankruptcies, new markets. Did you go, those that are assisted, did you go into the export market? Did you go into new products and services? How innovative were you? Now, if you were a bureaucrat, you want this list to be as long as possible, because when you get the data, you will go to your minister and say, Madam Minister, Mr. Minister, look what your government intervention did. Of course, your interest is your program, but you will provide evidence to this stakeholder that the impact, direct, indirect, and induced, was more than what you put in, right? You put in €1, $1, you got back 10. Okay, here is the pie in the sky, big